Okay, right. Let's tie up with the last two questions. So, question 9, we have a scenario where we sort of can find drivers for the cost, for the overhead, for the payroll service. And if you like, the argument here is that the different departments are you have different number of monthly staff paid, so we want to use that as the cost driver rate. So for payroll, so basically based on the number of people in the department, which makes sense. So so in terms of the cost driver rates, basically what the cost is per employee. Technically, we need 13,000 divided by, because we're literally just taking everything there. It's 540 plus 620 plus 1010 plus 235 plus 195. Right. The argument is that again, it's an overhead absorption rate ultimately. And all of this comes to 2,600 at the bottom here, which gives us 5. 13,000 divided by 2,600 is equal to 5. So the answer here is B, right? So that's the cost driver rate. And then I will now allocate, right? I'll just multiply each of these departments by 5, and they'll just share that based on that. So it's really, so you can see the real the correlation with things like apportioning and just basic, splitting it based on what's going on. Okay, right, let's look at this. So what we have here is really this person's been using traditional absorption costing. Now they want to change things because they can now break down, they've been able to break down their labor overheads a bit more. So they probably used a different method. Sorry, they used a different method. What am I saying? Hours to split that labor overhead, if you like. Not direct labor, not direct costs, but just the overhead. And that's what we're analyzing. They want us to reanalyze that here. So the focus is on this area here. Everything else remains as it is. The question here is if we change this cost now, we would have a different cost structure, and therefore the income remains the same, and therefore a different profit figure, won't we? So anyway, we now have it. We see here that we have there's a total cost. Really, what happened here, just to show you in context, was that we had a total overhead of 40,000, and somehow they split this 40,000, so it ended up being £30 and £20 per unit. But we're changing the way we reallocate this, so we remeasure this. So they're telling us that for this 22,000, 70% of it is for A, and therefore 30% is for B. So I'm just gonna, so basically I'm just gonna take that. I guess the best thing I can do is here 20,000 and call this A and call this B, and then just do it that way. Right? That might be the best thing to do. So 70% of this 80,000 is for A, so I'm going to take 70% of that. So that's 15,400 for A, and therefore this must be 6,600 for B, right? Because it tells me processing 70% is for A, and therefore the 40%, the 30% must be for B. Yes, because that's the splitting of this 22,000. It says here 80% on quality control is for A, so 80% here we have 6,400, and so here I must have 1,600, the difference. So 80% here, and then 62% of packaging, so that's 6,200, and here I must have 3,800. And so this is what I have. So those are my costs for my total overheads for A now. So so those are all my overheads now. And so typically what I'll do is I'd add all this together and split this, if you like, based on the actual number of units, if you like, because now I've got my overheads and I can tell you what the overhead is per unit. They want me to focus on B though. So just doing this 0, 0, 6 plus 6 is 12, 20, 2, 8, 9, 12. So I have 12,000 as my overhead, and it tells me that I have 500 units. So there we are. And so 5 in there is 2, and then you have £24. So my labor overhead, my new allocated overhead, is no longer 20, but it is 24. So given that my profit was 10, it now means that my costs have gone up by 4, and so my profits have gone down by 4, and so I now have a profit. My new profit, based on activity-based costing, is £6 per unit, right? Because I mean, you can add it again. You can do 80 minus 30 plus 20 plus 24, and you will get 74, and then that gives you a profit of 6. Right? Great stuff. Cool, and that brings us to the end of our TYUs from MC. Sorry, um our quick questions from Quick Test 2.